And that's yet another DDG win.
All right, welcome Dead Draw Gamers to this week's episode of the DDG podcast. This is Ryan Kelly, owner of Dead Draw Gaming. And tonight I'm joined by Phinnegan Lynch, owner, founder of Cutter Tap and DDG Pro Player, and Gabriel Smart, aka Smart TCG, also on Team DDG. How are y'all boys doing just a few days before the next major tournament?
Feeling good.
I'm feeling all right, a little uncertain on what to play right now, but hopefully that will be answered in the next 24 to 48 hours, or else I'm screwed. So yeah, been okay.
Kind of has to be answered, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, before we get started on everything, I just want to kind of quickly run down. We're going to take a look at the new Pokemon card 151 set that is going to be coming out in Japan over the summer. It looks like might be our special set later in the fall. Several cards from there that are pretty interesting that we'll take a look at. Then we'll kind of get into the most recent tournaments that Finn and Gabe have played in. I think Finn won a cup a couple weekends back, and Gabe got a challenge win over the weekend. So they've been playing in a lot of local events in between EUIC and the Portland Regionals. And after that, we'll get into the Portland Regional prep, what the meta is looking like going into this tournament. And of course, if you're Cutter Tap Stage 2 member, you can get an exclusive 10 to 15 minutes with Finn and Gabe breaking down, a much more detailed look at what they're planning on taking into Portland. So that being said, let's go ahead and just jump into these cards real fast. We've got the starter trio stage 2 evolutions in the form of EXs. So this, if Charizard gets an alt art or a full art of this card, it's going to be a banger of a set. It'll be very, very popular. But to start out with, we've got Venusaur EX at a whopping 340 HP for giving up 2 prizes. It's got the ability Soothing Bloom. Once during your turn, this Pokemon is in the active spot. You may heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. And then for 2 grass and 1 colorless, you got Potent Whip. Is 150 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned and confused. So, not to leave this too open-ended, but if you just want to give a quick grade on this, if this is S tier, mid, or complete trash, and just kind of your initial thoughts on Venusaur EX. Kind of interesting with a poison and confused for 150 damage.
I think this has potential, but I'd say it's kind of mid. I mean, the HP is really high. The ability gives it a little bit of potential. I'd say I think it could be combined with Fortress and like Iono or Roxanne. So possibly good, but probably not.
I think the biggest issue is that poison and confusion, sure you do the extra damage, but so many decks play switch outs right now, so the poison's not going to stick very long anyways, and neither is the confusion. So you're really effectively only doing 170, which for 3 energy is relatively weak, especially for a stage 2 that has 340 HP. Its ability is kind of okay. There's been a lot of Pokemon that have in the past had abilities similar to that, and they haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of success either, to my knowledge. So I think this card is very mid to, I wouldn't say it's completely unplayable, but I definitely think it's on the more lower tier part of it. If I had to rank it between 1 to 3, I'd put it at 1.5 maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, there's no indication that Lost Box won't be good when this comes out in the fall. And, on the one hand, you have 3 different cards that they could be playing to switch out of the active: switch cart, and escape rope. But if you're able to get this into the active, start tanking, and turn off the active Comfy's abilities with confusion, could be okay. So is that right? Your abilities turn off with...
No, that's not anymore. Yeah,
No.
It doesn't do it.
Well, I'm full of shit. But another point, good point, thing to point out is it is a 4 retreat cost as well. So
That's pretty bad. Yeah.
Unless you have
That's
something
really hard to move.
yeah, in your deck to switch it out manually, it's gonna be hard to get out of the active. So okay, on to probably everyone's favorite here. Charizard EX, 330 damage. For 1 fire, Resolute Wings, you're doing 60 plus damage. This Pokemon has any damage counters on it. This attack does 100 more damage, so total 160. And then for 4 fire energy, Detonating Vortex, you're doing 330 damage. And you need to discard 3 energy from this Pokemon as a result. And it is a 2 retreat cost.
Yeah, I think this one's better. You're doing basically the same amount of damage that Venusaur would do, but for 1 energy, and you just like Magma Basin to get the 2 damage counters on it. 2 retreat costs less than Venusaur. That's like pretty significant. 2 retreat costs isn't too bad, but 4 is like really bad. So I think you could probably use both attacks on this thing. You can use it as a closer doing 330, but that is like a whole lot to set up. But if we're ever seeing like anything like really beefy in the metagame, like Duraludon, Urshifu, stuff like that, or even Mew EX, like you just take that one shot. So I would kind of give it the same ranking, like potential, but probably not good. Higher potential than Venusaur though.
I think this one is actually good. So there's a Charizard that's still legal right now that turns every fire into 2. So it makes Detonating Vortex do 330 for 2 energy, which is actually very, very strong. Resolute Wings is also a pretty decent attack, 330 HP. Then also what Finn said, 2 retreat cost is relatively nice. I think that if we get more fire support, this deck has a lot of potential to actually be really, really strong. It's just right now, fire, after several years of being one of the most powerful types, doesn't necessarily have a whole lot going for it right now. Which I guess is, kind of one of the big things that we just don't know if it's just going to be Charizard and Charizard alone. Like, yeah, you do have things like Magma Basin, and it is a stage 2, but I think this card will be viable. Like there's definitely going to be someone that can make at least a tier 2 or 3 deck out of this card, just simply because the other Charizard exists. But then you run into the problem of obviously having to have 2 stage 2 on the field. But I think the opportunity cost of just how powerful this card can be is definitely worth trying it out. I think in one of those Charizard Magma Basin-ish decks. You can also play like Radiant Heatran as well with this card. So there are still some powerful fire types. I just don't think that they all mesh very well together. But now that we have a Charizard that can pair up with the other Charizard, I think from like Pokemon Go or something like that, it actually does have potential.
I want to change my answer a little bit. I forgot about that other Charizard. That's actually quite good.
Yeah.
But that
The 200 for
Charizard,
330 is really good.
and it's still a stage 2, right? The other Charizard, so you'd have to
Yeah,
get
so that's the only thing keeping it from being overpowered. Yeah.
right. What I hear Gabe saying is we need a welder reprint to just
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah, everyone would be happy with that, right?
I think the real problem is just going to be Sableye. Like all these stage 2 decks are just going to, like every stage 2 deck is going to have the same problem. It's the problem that Guardy has right now. It's just like Sableye just bodies you. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a little more exciting. And I think this, I don't know, kind of depends. This might be the best one. Blastoise EX, 330 HP, ability Solid Shell, takes 30 less damage from attacks. And then for 2 water, Twin Cannons, 140 times damage, and you discard up to 2 basic water energies from your hand. This attack does 140 damage for each card discarded in this way. So 280 for 2 water energy seems pretty good. 3 retreat costs on this one. And weak to lightning.
Yeah.
I think it's slightly better. I don't think it's necessarily like exceptionally better than Charizard, more or less because you can't Melanie to it. But there is the new water type card that's coming out the set before that is just a Blastoise Deluge, right? So you can just go like 280, 280, 280. But then again, like 280 is not necessarily enough right now in the meta game, but it's sustainable, I think. I think it's good, but
It will have like Miraidon has been pretty bad so far, but this is weak to Miraidon if that ever like gains.
It's also weak to
popularity.
Raikou.
Yeah, I mean they can't Sky Seal Stone it though, so you're kind of just trading 2 for 2. So that's like not the worst.
I mean, it still doesn't feel great to
EX.
trade 2 for 2 though because they're a basic and you're a stage 2, so it's not entirely trading 2 for 2.
Yeah, Yeah, you have to commit a lot more. Eh,
We are
I
gonna have
don't know.
multiple ways to power this up. You are gonna have the bench deluge ability, coming out in Paldea Evolved. Plus, you're going to be able to have Raihan to pretty easily get into a stage 2 and attach the energy. I think it's interesting for sure, especially, you're 360 HP essentially with the ability.
That's true. That's a good point. I wish you could Melanie to this thing, but Melanie doesn't work because that's only a V's.
Yeah.
That would make this card like one of the best ones probably in the format. Like being able to go 280, 280, 280 is like absurd. So
But just like again, this deck is gonna like you need to have something to answer Lost Box. Like there's none of these cards have anything built into them that help with Lost Box at all.
yeah, I think that like the biggest thing that hold like right now, the really only viable stage 2 is Gardevoir, I think, because that's just because the card is just so unfathomably just like overpowered. And like these cards all here aren't necessarily bad. Like the Charizard's not bad, the Blastoise is not bad. But to be a stage 2, you have to have some almost game breaking ability to survive currently. And these cards are solid, they just don't have something that like a Gardevoir, like has it. And you don't also have like the support of just cards that pretty much just allow you to break the game, like Sky Seal Stone Zacian and stuff like that, which is what stage 2s need right now to keep up with the stage 1 and also basic decks, which like these cards are not bad. It's just I don't know if it's the time for them because of how the metagame is shaped up. There's nothing like broken about them.
Honestly, I can say that I actually think all three of these as decks would probably beat something like Lugia, right? Because the damage is there. Like Venusaur
It'll
doesn't
be your
really
arc
have
variants and stuff like that.
Yeah, Lugia and Arc variants. I mean, the damage really isn't there for Venusaur, but it's actually grass type. So like you're just one-shotting T-Tar, which is really cool. And then you just like kind of trade 2 for 2 with Lugia. And then they don't really play switch effects in Lugia, right? So those status conditions can actually like stick occasionally, or you can just like make them discard energy to retreat repeatedly. And Lugia in this format can actually just run out of energy. Like that actually happens to Lugia in this format. Especially if you're not playing well. So yeah, like ignoring Lost Box, all three of these cards I think have potential, but the most so I would say Charizard.
Yeah, I think the Charizard's probably the best one just because 330 is just absurd. And like 280 is good, but it's not like overpowered like it used to be.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we have a lot more cards to be released in this set to kind of determine what the meta is going to look like. And in on the same note as that, we've got 3 trainers I just want to like throw out there really quickly that are kind of interesting as well. Snap Charm, which is an item that lets you look at your opponent's hand, choose a Pokemon you find there, and put it at the bottom of your opponent's deck. Leftovers, which is a Pokemon tool. The Pokemon this card is attached to is your active Pokemon at the end of the turn. Heal 20 damage from that Pokemon. And then we have a supporter. Your opponent reveals their hand, which is it's Erica's invitation. Your opponent reveals their hand, choose a basic Pokemon you find there, and put it on their bench. Then switch in that Pokemon to the active spot. Just real quick, y'all's thoughts on any 3 of these. I think the last one is particularly interesting. You get to Echoing Horn something from the hand and then put it into the active spot.
Erica's is good in control for sure. I actually think this card is going to see a decent amount of play. Especially I just think like the fear of it being, like index is going to make people potentially play slightly differently. Obviously, it does have a place in control. But I think this card is going to be really interesting to see as like one ofs in certain decks that might need something like an extra gust effect or, kind of like a Echoing Horn, but like for the hand, I think that Leftovers is not bad. I know we had a Leftovers card like way back, like I think like 15 years ago, and I don't actually remember exactly how good it was if I remember. But I also think that Leftovers isn't terrible. Like being able to heal 20 in between turns. So I just spoke on this card such as active Pokemon at the end of the turn heal 20. It's like okay. But I think that Erica's is by far the best one. And like Snatch Arm is kind of cool, but I don't think it's that great.
Yeah, I actually think the Leftovers probably could be good on Venusaur, right? Like you heal 80
Yeah.
per turn, so that's pretty solid. You combine that with like some other kind of healing card. I don't know if Cook is rotated, but I don't know, something like Cook.
You can play it in Goodra as well, Leftovers.
Yeah.
Actually.
I think
Anything
Kook was
tanking.
a Fusion Strike, right?
Yeah, Cook was like, I guess we should check. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
let's
around.
use
It's
the check.
around.
It is.
Yeah. So that, I don't know, that could be good. I think Erica's invitation is kind of bad. Like if your opponent just has a full bench, it's unplayable, and then you're like hoping that they have a basic in their hand for you to even snatch when you use it, and there's like no guarantee that there's going to be anything there unless you somehow can look at your opponent's hand, which I think is only possible right now through using Greninja V Union. I think. So
There's
yeah.
actually
Is
Snatch
there
Charm,
a
the new item card.
Oh, okay.
So like that's how like
Okay.
they put him in the same set I think to like try and synergize because that's what Pokemon does. So
Okay, okay.
Well, it's
So
for like it's
okay,
taking
so
a
it doesn't
Pokemon
make
out of
sense
the
because Snatch
hand.
Arms puts a card from puts a Pokemon to the
yeah,
bottom, but Erica's you need a Pokemon, so it doesn't actually make sense.
yeah, I mean, I don't can you even fail that? I don't think you can snatch arm fail, right?
No, I mean it says and put it at the bottom of your opponent's deck.
Yeah, because
So
hand is common knowledge once you see it, whereas
Yeah,
yeah,
that's okay. That seems like a
doesn't help at
terrible
all.
combination.
Yeah.
These
yeah.
the only I don't think any of these cards are good except for maybe leftovers in certain tank decks.
Yeah, I think leftovers has potential.
Yeah. Fun fact, the old card that you're talking about, I submitted there was like a make a Pokemon card contest in 2014 and I submitted that. They never gave me like a heads up saying that they printed it, but that card came out pretty soon after they submitted it, so I like to think I made that card.
What card was it?
I don't even remember the name of it. It was the old leftovers, but it healed 10 instead of 20.
It wasn't
Um,
Eviolite. It was
no, it wasn't Eviolite. Oh, I thought it was like Soothing Bell, but it's not Soothing Bell. It's something else. It was a different tool. Anyway,
Interesting.
I like to think I made that card.
There's a bunch of other cards that they've released so far. There's like an Omastar that's out there, like a Bootomps. They've done yet another fossil gimmick to evolve from. So now we have Old Dome Fossil. I think I saw a tweet somewhere that's like the fourth or fifth like thing you can evolve fossils from at this point. You got Starmie that has an interesting ability. So if you're interested, there's a bunch of different cards that have been released from the Pokemon 151 set. Last thing I'll mention here, there's a stadium that we were talking about before we started recording, Cycling Road, which once during each player's turn, the player may discard a basic energy card from their hand. If they do, the player draws a card. I don't see that being great, but it's probably might have some synergies with some archetypes out there, but I think
Yeah.
there's many more better stadiums in each type of deck you're probably playing. So
I could see it in Miraidon, right? Like Miraidon plays a bunch of energy and it's just trying to go as fast as it can. So like anytime you draw into those extra energy, just draw an extra card. That's actually seems fine in something like Miraidon or maybe Dialga, like the Dialga Magnezone deck, maybe one of those.
yeah, there's a few like edge cases for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's that. Hopefully in the future we'll do more of the card previews. I think we missed the boat for everything that's coming out in Paldea Evolved, and everyone's super familiar with what that set's going to look like. But we'll definitely have meta discussions as we get closer to that release in June. But kind of switching gears here, y'all had a bunch of locals that you've been playing in the past couple weekends. I'm pretty jealous because I've been doing wedding planning and haven't been able to get out to any challenges or cups yet. So
There's been a couple in Dallas, right? I've seen online. There's been a
we
couple
haven't had
there,
a
and I was
cup
like,
yet. Yeah,
there's
there's
challenges. I was like, where's Ryan, bro?
yeah, dude. I was actually really mad because one of our friends won 2 of the challenges, and I was gonna go to the Sunday challenge, and Blake I don't think has ever won a game against me. I would have for sure prevented him from winning that challenge. But in any case, what did y'all play to your winning tournaments, and how are these locals going for you?
I'm
Um,
surfing.
yeah. At the cup I won, I played Lost Box Kyogre, and it worked really well. I didn't lose a game. I just 1-0 or 2-0 everybody, so that felt really good. And then I was in a cup last weekend and I was playing Lugia. Same thing, but I had prior obligations, so I won in top 8, and then I just had to leave the tournament because I said I would do something like a month ago, and I just couldn't like back out of it, so I just left. But I think I would have won. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah,
Okay,
that's
that's
been my
like
experience with the cups.
nice.
Yeah, so I've had a couple cups. I played Gardevoir to 2 of the 3 of them. I got top 4 at one, top 8 at the other. Both times losing to Lost Box, unfortunately, which is Gardevoir's kryptonite right now.
Yep.
I played Lugia to the other one, just low rolled. Lugia is kind of a coin flip deck at the moment. Well, not like entirely, but like when like you draw bad, you draw like really bad with Lugia, and I kind of got the bad end of the stick of that, also with some rough prizes. And then I also won a league challenge with Gardevoir as well. So I think I've gotten like 60, 70-ish points from locals, I think, something like that. So it's been going pretty well. One of the things that I've been kind of focusing on with locals is just trying to build my lists as consistent as possible, just because most of our locals are best of one, which is actually a big reason as to why I'm choosing not to play, certain decks, just because I don't want to get like bad variants or like set up poorly. So that's been kind of my thought process. I know at one event I added in a second Mysterious Tail, Mew, and Gardevoir, just because if you prize it, your setups are oftentimes heavily compromised. So that just is, like for some example of I guess how like I'm adjusting to best of one. I actually have an article that's coming out, I think, on Cutter Tap, kind of, talking about league cups and league challenges and kind of like how I like to prepare for them. So like make sure to go check that out when it comes out.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, that article is actually going to be it's ready to go, so we're probably going to upload it tonight, and
Yeah.
it will be available for everyone to check out this weekend. And if you're not going to Portland to hand up challenges and cups, then definitely give that a read over at cuttertap.com. On the Lugia list you're playing, what's your list looking like at this point? Is it including Duraludon? Is it including any other attackers besides Lugia and Tyranitar and the similar list we saw from EUIC? How's it built now?
So Duraludon was only good for EOIC and EOIC only because the majority of other Lugia players were not actually playing Duraludon, so you simply just, slapped on a Duraludon in the mirror match and you won. However, going against Lugia players now, most of them have a Duraludon as well, so the Duraludon kind of loses what makes it special in the mirror match. So now you should actually be playing either a 1/1 or 2/2 single strike Urshifu VMAX line in the deck, simply because single strike Urshifu VMAX is just strictly better versus the Duraludon variant, because you can one-shot the Duraludon with single strike Urshifu and they can't one-shot you back no matter how many single strike energies. I think they max out at like 300 or something like that, whereas you max out at like 350. So during EUIC, when no one was actually playing the Duraludon was obviously the obvious choice. However, nowadays you should all be playing at least 1/1 single strike Urshifu for that deck, just because you don't really need the Duraludon anymore, and also single strike Urshifu accomplishes what you're also wanting to do versus the Goodra matchup, because I know versus Goodra that matchup was normally pretty rough, and then like the Duraludon helped out because of the single strike energies, and it also went through Rolling Iron. Gmax one blow just one shots it no matter what. I think you base out like at 350 at max, so you can still just kind of blow through them. So it pretty much accomplishes everything that Duraludon was supposed to do, and also is better than now. Yeah, so so it's just like better in mirror now. So I guess that's kind of how I could explain it. But yeah,
Are you sticking with 2 urns, or are you increasing that number at all? Since
I think
you're
you need 3, honestly. Like
Yeah.
I've kind of
Yeah.
considered 4 even, but just because like on the turn that you Gmax one blow, sometimes if they have Judge or Roxanne, it can get a little bit scary, because like sometimes you want to Gmax one blow twice, versus like certain matchups like Goodra. Sometimes even if they're able to get set up a double Duraludon. So I've even considered going up to 4 and like cutting in energy, just because it's so important to do it back-to-back turns, because you oftentimes need to use 2 urns on a turn to be able to do it again versus like some specific matchups. So that's kind of what I've thought about.
Ben,
Yeah.
agree, disagree?
Yeah, because that's pretty similar to like what Gabe was playing. Is when I played Lugia over the weekend at that cup, I was playing the 1/1 Urshi, and I just didn't run into matchups where Urshi mattered. So I didn't really need it, but I know that if you're playing it, you definitely need like 3 urn. I actually am not even opposed to playing 4. I definitely think you could just like because like I was playing 4 single strike and then 2 impact, and I like wouldn't be opposed to just cutting the second impact for a 4th urn. I actually think that's quite possible. I mean, you have to discard all the energy attached to
Yeah.
Urshi when you attack. That's a lot, dude. That's
It's
like
3
4
out of your
energy.
4.
I think
Is
it's isn't it 4 energy? It's fighting colors, I believe.
It's fighting colors. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree though that Urshi is the way to go. Like, you have to have Dura or Urshi as an answer to Gudra, because Gudra is like actually a real deck now, which doesn't make any sense to me. But you have to have some kind of answer, and then honestly, I don't even really think it matters in the mirror anymore, because I don't think people really play like Dura any. I don't think they should. Maybe some people still will, but like I was playing mirrors, and neither of us were even setting up Urshi, because it's not that, like, you don't even need to Urshi if your opponent doesn't, right? So like I'd rather just like bench an Urshi V as soon as I see them bench theirs, so that I can answer theirs, but otherwise I'm probably not even gonna put it down. So
Sometimes just the threat of it kind of scares them off. You don't even need to evolve it.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, that's what I would go with for sure. I just like Trevor Reed's top 8 list with like a few adjustments to accommodate the Urshifu is probably what I'd recommend.
Okay. Okay. Now looking ahead to Portland this weekend, at a very high level, we'll hit this question and then we'll move over to the cutter tap section of the podcast. But at a high level, 2 questions for y'all. What do you think? How do you think the meta share is going to break down between the top 4 or 5 decks? And then what do you see winning this event? Not necessarily what you would play to this event or what you think you could win with this event, but what do you actually think is going to win this event?
So I think the most popular deck is going to be Lost Box. I think number 2 is going to be Guardy. And I think number 3 is going to be Lugia or Mew. And number 4 is going to be Lugia or Mew. And then the rest is probably like Gudra, I think would probably be number 5. So that's what I'm expecting the meta to be. The deck that I think will win is going to be either Lost Box or Lugia. Those are the 2. Yeah, but probably one of those. But it just kind of depends on like what the good players play. If the good players don't play Lost Box and they play other stuff, I don't see like an average or like middle of the road player taking a Lost Box and making a deep run. Like you have to play Lost Box so well. So I think if like good players don't play Lost Box, or they do and just like have off days or whatever, then Lugia will win. And if not, then I think Lost Box will win.
I think that to answer the first part of your question, I think this is going to be the biggest proportion of Lost Box that I think we've seen since its release in Lost Origins. I know that Lost Box has consistently stayed around 20-ish%. I would not be surprised if it hits 30%, just from looking at the meta shares and what everyone has been playing in online tournaments, and just also, kind of listening to the chatter of what, people are talking about. It's just Lost on Box, Lost on Box, Lost on Box. The West Coast is also very heavy. Like when it comes to Lost on Box, and typically West Coast events are a little bit smaller, so the metagame is a little bit more predictable if you know the metagame. From what I've heard from some of my friends from Washington, Lost Box is very, very favorable there, and that's going to take up a lot of the people, at Portland. So as of right now, I would say Lost Box is definitely going to be the most played deck. Finn pretty much hit it on the nose there. I don't necessarily know if an average player that doesn't have a ton of experience, could carry Lost Box through 15 rounds. The deck is really hard to play, and it challenges you a lot. Like there are so many just, like in-game decisions that make or break games. And sometimes you can't even notice them because they happen on turn 2 or 3 of the game. So just, like understanding that if you play Lost Box at this tournament, it is not going to be an easy event, most likely for you. I think that the mirror match is kind of concerning as well, just because there's going to be so many. When it comes to what I think is going to win the event, I don't know. Like I've never had a super high feeling on Lost Box winning tournaments. I think it can get there, but I always just feel like the inherently best, most powerful deck wins tournaments. I think that's a big reason as to why we saw Lugia V-Star just like continuously win tournament after tournament when so many people were, trying to counter it. So I would not be surprised if just a deck with like arguably the best engine possible being Lugia and also Gardevoir. I would not be surprised if one of those two won the event just because their engines are so broken. That I feel like those are the two decks that can get you through a day one and, get you through that final top 8 bracket.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there on YouTube and on the audio podcast. We're going to go for another 10 or 15 minutes over on the Cutter Tap website with a stage 2 subscribers members podcast. But thank you, Finn, Gabe, for joining last minute tonight. We had someone else traveling literally across the country for Portland, so thank you for stepping in.
Yeah, happily. Thanks for having me.
Yep, and Gabe's gonna have an article on Cutter Tap coming out tomorrow. I think Finn has one wrapping up, will be out very soon. So be sure to go check out all articles from all 6 players on DDG. And we will also please go check out deaddragami.com. We have all these top decks ready to go for you. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you next time.